Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Welcome to Contractor Cuts. My name is Clark Turner.
I'm Jared Flo.
Thank you for joining us again. So today we're talking about why failure is so high in the construction industry. Yeah. This podcast is the first of two parts. We have identified in what we do and the amount of coaching we've been doing and the companies we've had a exclusive look behind the scenes. There are two spots in the lifespan of a company where we see people hitting walls and failing. Yeah. There's 4% of contracting companies make it to 10 years. Yeah. There's a high fail rate. And so we're going to dive into that today.
There's a couple reasons. Yeah. There's a couple big main reasons.
Big reasons. So today's podcast is covering the first wall that people hit and where they get stuck and lose money and die. And then the second podcast that we'll release in 2 weeks is going to be about the second wall. Once you get past the first one, there's a second one that's coming. Yeah. So you got to be ready for it. So today, diving into it, there are 3 reasons that companies fail. The first reason, financial mismanagement. Yeah. That's an obvious one. You over leveraged, too much overhead, too much spending, didn't understand what your money looked like.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul. We've talked about all of that on
all sorts of financial management. The second reason that companies fail is because they lose their reputation. Mm-hmm. There is a reputation lost, and so the clients stop coming, and usually that leads to the financial failure as well, where I can't afford to pay myself, much less my employees or whatever structure I'm in.
A lot of that is due to like not having proper processes and procedures, and the not delivering the experience well to the client, which decreases the reputation and your cash and all that stuff.
Yep. And then the third reason that that companies fail is attrition. They are working in their company, and I've been doing the 9-to-5 grind, 60 hours a week because I'm working 7 days a week, and then I just can't get it. And I'm just done.
It grinds you out.
It grinds you to the core, and you say, you know what, forget it. I'm going to go work for someone. I'm going to go get a job at Home Depot. I don't care. I just can't do this anymore. It's too stressful. I'm not making any money. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I'm getting paid the same amount as I was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and that is I feel like that's a place, the attrition part of it, that it's higher on the beginning stages of development of a company. Yeah. As you're trying to grow from one space to the next and grow to the next level, I think earlier on in the stages, it can apply later on, but earlier on when you're trying to build something substantial, there are places where you can hit walls and you just get the same thing over and over, the hamster wheel where you just get stuck on it and you can't get past it. And eventually you just go, it's not worth it for me anymore.
And honestly, it's not even I can't grow, like I'm hitting a wall. It's I thought I was growing and then I go backwards. I thought I was growing and then I'm backwards again. And so it's the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 4 steps back. 3 steps forward, 8 steps back. We gotta fire everybody and we're losing all the money. Right? And so it's the I think we're getting somewhere. I did it wrong. I made the wrong decision. I'm going backwards. And so that part of it is the most controllable. And honestly, figuring out your processes and procedures of what we're about to talk about is the most important thing to help you. That's going to happen, but to help you to go 5 steps forward, 2 steps back. 5 steps forward, 3 steps back. 5 steps forward, 1 step back. And to where you're still getting progress.
You're moving forward, right?
Even as things change that are out of your control.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that we see and why we kind of are talking about these, the walls that you hit and how to move through them is because we see the contractors that we work with and the different companies that we work with in different stages. They get to these walls and they just keep bumping into them and falling backwards, and they can't get to the other side and sustain past it. And the longer that you stay in that transitional point is just money. Yeah. You're just spending money, spending time, grinding your gears, trying to get past it. And if you spend too much time there, that's where companies fail. Yeah. Right.
I think the biggest value that we've brought to guys is you don't get to that spot and you're like, well, I'm just doing it wrong and I know it. I just got to change it. Yeah. It's you don't know what you don't know. What am I doing wrong? What decisions am I saying? What have I not planned? I don't understand why I can't get there because I'm trying my hardest and I've done it 3 times and that first hire I fire every single time. They don't work out and this doesn't happen. And so it's the inability to have an outsider's perspective on yourself to be able to say, oh, hey, this is what I did wrong. I need to change that and do it a different way. And I think that's where we help people fast forward. We say, okay, we've made every mistake in the book.
Right.
What you're about to hit is these 3 areas, and these are the areas that you will make mistakes. This is what we need to do to avoid making those mistakes as you're going through this wall.
Right.
Now, we can lead a horse to water. We can't make them drink.
Yeah.
But that being said, we lay that out for guys and say, this is exactly what you're going to run against. This is how you avoid it. Let's build around your company, your strategy, your area, your industry, and make sure that we have these points buttoned up.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about the first wall that guys hit. And in that, we've also a bigger kind of picture of ProServe Alliance and what ProServe 360's division does is how we identify companies in different stage levels. So we have 5 different stages that we have. Jared's got it. If you're on our YouTube, you can see kind of an example of the first 4 stages.
Different movement through the stages, where you hire, what you're doing in those stages. It's the places that we've strategically seen growth from level to level and what you're doing in each one of those levels. It allows you when you're in that space of like, I just don't, you said you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know, right? This is that space of like, let us show you what, based off of our experience going from level 1 to level 2, level 3, level 4, what you need to be doing.
Well, and defining those levels, we've got them in 4 levels because in each of those levels, you have a different company.
Right.
There's a different DNA for each level of what the company is, right? And so we're going to talk about some of that in the transitional spots where people get stuck, the walls people hit are somewhere in the middle of going from 1 to 2 and going from 2 to 3.
Right.
And so we're going to kind of break it down. Sometimes it happens when you're in level 1, sometimes it's in level 2. But the first wall that we're going to talk about is discussing when I'm a level 1, a person in a level 1 company is they're on site every day. They're glorified crew lead.
Right.
It's you're swinging a hammer, you're out there with the guys. Maybe you're running in one crew on the side that's doing this other job, but then I got to jump in and finish the sheetrock because I didn't get it done in time.
Right.
And I ran out of money. Or I'm on this job. I brought a guy with me who's my hourly help. I've also got another job that I'm sharing time on. But I've got 2 to 3 jobs running. That's a level 1 company.
Yeah, whether it's every single job, you are actually executing labor, you're hammering nails, you're putting up sheetrock, you're running a paintbrush, or a variance of that where you've got a couple where you're not and you're managing a couple trusted crews, but you, in some form or fashion, you are selling your skill of labor on site.
Your tools are with you.
That's right.
That's level 1.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, transitioning out of that and going to level 2, we're not going to define today. That's part of we have a 280-point checklist where we walk you through every single level, getting what needs to be in place. And so with that being said, level 1 and those guys that are out there hustling, running it, they are selling the product of them.
Yeah.
What I have in my brain, my skills as a carpenter, my skills in HVAC, whatever your company is and your industry is, I am selling me as the product.
Right.
And so on those jobs when you're level 1, my job is to execute the labor, exchange my time for your money. And because I'm really good at what I do, I can do things quicker and make more money. And so I go from being able to make 40, 50,000 a year to 80, 90,000 a year to maybe even 100, 120, 130. And it depends on what city you live in. You're going to make a lot more in New York than you would in Albany, Georgia, right? And so that side doesn't matter, but there is a maximum amount that you can exchange your time on the job sites for that you are going to hit.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things that comes to mind is that you go to work and you have a tool belt, right? And the transition is taking that tool belt and leaving it at home. You don't need it anymore. You've got other people that are doing that. The difficulty is that while you're in level 1, you are, along with the profit that you have built into the jobs, you are also getting paid for the labor of the work that you do. So you can make good money in that spot, but you're limited by the bandwidth of you and what you can do.
Yeah, we've got in our One Day to Win events, we walk through kind of understanding those different job roles and talking about you're a crew lead and a project manager. And because you're doing the labor and the project management, you're making the 30% the project manager should make, the 40 to 45% the labor should make. So I'm making 75% of the dollars coming in. The only money I'm not making is what I have to pay my help as well as the materials.
Right, which is a part of the reason why making the transition is so difficult.
Very difficult.
Because if I'm used to taking home 65 to 75% of the invoice, whatever I invoice, I'm making 65% of. If I'm used to that, making the transition to the next level where you're just a project manager, you're not executing labor, that means that you're that additional 45%, you're using that money to pay somebody else to execute the labor. So you're immediately reducing your incoming money down to just the 30%.
So you have to over double your revenue to make the same amount of money if you were solely a project manager versus project manager and labor.
Right.
And so that is one of the hardest transitions because how do I double the amount of work I'm doing? And how do I all of a sudden increase revenue by 100% to be able to afford what paying myself and living? And the other side of that is it is a totally different job role. You have a different job description when you're moving out of day-to-day management of the job and what's happening on site every day and having your eyes on it, to being a project manager with crews that are running.
Right.
So that's the first wall that we see people hit. And we're going to kind of dive into that, but we see guys all the time, when they're out there running, swinging hammers, doing the work themselves, saying, okay, I'm going to make my first hire. Well, whoa. You're not going to make your first hire. We're not hiring people right now while you're swinging a hammer.
Hiring always feels like growth.
Yes.
The answer to growth.
It's expensive non-growth. The hiring is to support growth, not to create growth. And so what we're talking about is when you step out of that and you step into, I'm going to project manage all my crews, right? And so what is changing in your job? You have an entirely new job description of what your day looks like. Your Monday through Friday has now changed significantly than it was running.
Yeah.
And so the problem that guys are hitting is I got enough work to where I can run 3 crews. I've got my crews to do it. I've got a third one that I'm interviewing, so I can run 3 at a time, and I'll make enough money to be able to project manage this. And they get there, they do it, they get the work, they start managing these crews. That crew fails, messes up, ditches, doesn't show up. Now I'm going to just go finish that up. Now I'm back swinging a hammer. Now I'm going to do this. And while I'm spending my time on the job site completing that work or helping the crews or doing that 4th job because I have a 4th customer, now let's make more money and I'm going to go do the work. Instead of spending your time doing that and exchanging it for money, what you need to be doing is spending your time in building relationships for future, building the pipeline of the next 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months of work that's going to be feeding my 3 crews that are here, interviewing new crews, there's a whole list of stuff that you need to be doing, and that's a full-time job.
Right.
So you can't do that stuff that's building the structure of your foundation of your company at the same time that you're swinging a hammer on a job site.
Yeah.
You just can't. There's not enough time in your day, in your life. And so the problem is, how do I financially manage this? Right, the 3 areas that we see failure in, we'll talk about in a second. But how do I financially manage this to where I can pull out of doing the work, but also the guys that are on the job site are giving the same quality product that I was giving?
Right,
because that's the big problem. Is we see on our you look at our TikTok posts, we have guys all the time like, I got to have my eyes on every single job. That's what your problem is. Unless you're looking at the job, unless you're on site, it's not going to be a good product.
Right.
That's right. For you, when you're the product, you are absolutely correct.
Yep.
When you're not the product, when you have built the product,
if you're trying to build something bigger than you,
then it has to be a better product than you are on the site. So that's one of my biggest accomplishments in getting past this wall myself when I was starting this company was, if I look back now, the product that our contracting company gives to homeowners is a better product than when I was running it. And when I was running it and I was out there doing the work, it was a really good product.
Right.
And so that's the goal. If you are stepping out and you're looking back at the product and saying, it's not working well, that's your fault.
Yeah.
Because you didn't build the processes and procedures to duplicate the product of you. Right? Everyone thinks I want a second me. I want to duplicate me. I want to double me. If I get another one of me, I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
You're not going to get another you.
Right.
So we're going to build processes on the important stuff that people expect from you so we can hold people accountable to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think to go along with that, when you are in level 1, you are tangibly every day responsible for and in charge of and in control of the quality of the product, as well as the experience, the customer service, the, talking to them, the back and forth, making sure they feel comfortable with how things are going, all of that stuff. You're managing that on a day-to-day basis, and you're handling that all the time because you're there on site, and you're doing the quality to make sure that the sheetrock's hung correctly and the paint looks good and all of that stuff. You can do that in level 1. When you transition to level 2, where you are project managing, there's a separation of those responsibilities. The delivery of the quality of the product is now on your crews. The people that are on site every day.
You're managing it. You're not delivering it.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. And then your job responsibility becomes, how do I take care of clients? How do I provide a good experience for them? How do I create more work and create a pipeline? But the process that you're trying to bridge the gap of is that you're not on site every day ensuring that quality is correct, right? Sometimes you can be, sometimes you're not. But as you grow, you can't be there every day all the time. So that's what you're creating in that position is, how do I continue to deliver the same level of quality, the same level of experience, and be able to grow where I'm not on site every day all day. Right. And so that's some of that transition of job responsibility and duties that you when you're moving past it, and where people fail, they continue to try and do the same thing they were doing in level 1. They just try to do it the same way in level 2, and it's not going to work that way. You have to know what your new responsibility is and what's going to be required of you in that position. Right. And then, if you don't know, take the time to figure it out.
So one of the reasons that people say I can't get past this is, how do I get that crew to deliver the same level of product that I was delivering? Because I'm really good. I've been doing carpentry work for 25 years, and those guys are 3 years into it, and I have to babysit them and make sure they don't show up on time. Whatever the reason is, this is where your processes and procedures start. This is what we start with everybody. How do we deliver this product of you on the job site? What are the minimum requirements? What are the expectations? And where do we set the bar of how do I check in? How do I vet new subs? How do I ensure that they're checking these boxes? What paperwork do I have posted on the job site that they have to sign off on every single night? I need the air conditioning checked. I need the lights off. Right? We have all of that paperwork that as you grow, this is what we have to implement in the field to ensure that as I'm managing the job, I've got my checkpoints. I know what I'm looking for. I know how I'm being duplicated on the job site. And I can trust that these checkpoints are going to tell me if there's a red flag.
Well, and it's things like, when you're, when you hear referrals or people talk about you when you were running the jobs, and they say, what, one of the things that I really love about him is at the end of the day, everything was neat and orderly. They didn't leave my house disheveled and all that stuff. If they're saying about that about you on a regular basis, and you move to the next level, you have to have you can't expect everybody to just think the way that you think. You can't expect a crew to think, well, I'll just pick up that McDonald's thing tomorrow. They don't think that way. So you have to create those procedures to, at the end of the day, this is how I want my job site to look. And hold them accountable to that.
Stuff that's common sense to you is not common sense to everybody.
Correct.
And just because you think it's common sense, you can't hold people to that bar that's just common sense. You clean up at the end of the day. Well, that crew never learned that way. And so your job is to say, this is how our job site operates. I need X, Y, and Z. End of the day, whenever you're going to leave, 15 minutes before you leave, I need tools away. I need trash swept. I need blah, blah, blah. Whatever you need. You lay out to them part of the onboarding with your crew. And so now that my crew knows how my job sites run, I have a bar of expectations that I can hold them to.
Well, and one thing that I would say is a litmus test to see if you are doing that well or not. If you have a lot of crew turnover and you're constantly like, this crew, they screwed me again, but I'm done, and you've got a lot of crew turnover, the reality is that you're going to have crew turnover because there are some guys that come in and they can't execute. They can't do what you need them to do.
Yep.
But if the turnover is because clients are complaining about them because they don't show up on time or they leave the house a mess, that's on you.
Yeah.
That's because you didn't set them up for success to deliver what the client is going to expect.
And if you say, I did, okay, then you didn't set up an accountability system to make sure they hit that success.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's why we push our software so hard, because if you're running and gunning in a level 1 and doing the work yourself, you don't need software.
No.
If that's where you're going to be forever, until I'm going to nest money away every single year until I hit 65, 70, 75, and then I can just stop doing this and I've got my nest egg.
Yep.
That's your plan. You don't need software. Nope. You don't need coaching. You don't need help. Keep selling your time and keep doing that. That is an time-honored tradition in construction. That's what guys do. They just, I'm gonna swing a hammer. That's what I'm good at. I'm gonna stay there. I'm not gonna grow. Great, do that. You don't need software.
If your dream is for more than that.
Yep. If you want something to where you can be on the beach in a retirement mindset, to where you're checking in once a month, twice a month with your general manager, operating something you can pass to your kids, something that is a legacy that lives beyond you, to where it is a stabilized company that's running, you have to start acting like the bigger company that you want to grow into. So that's, even though I'm running jobs myself, getting into a software and doing the extra work that is unnecessary at my current level is how I get to the next level.
Right.
And so that's what we do with our implementation, with our growth path, is this is what you need to be preparing for that isn't a waste of time. It's going to feel like a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's going to feel
busy work,
redundant, busy work, because for you don't need it. You don't need to document pictures, because if a client asks, you got the pictures on your phone. So why would you upload those into the software? Well, we're training ourselves and our systems in the company that when someone comes in to duplicate me, this is how I keep them accountable. I can see that they've uploaded the pictures. That's how we're doing. So I digress. Going into hitting that wall, when you're trying to get to that level, the three things that we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, the three ways that companies fail is finances, the reputation, and attrition. I just can't get over the hump.
Right.
The reason for that, and we work it backwards, what you have to do to get over that first hump, you have to have processes and procedures for where I'm at today. Then we have to have processes and procedures for where I'm going.
Right.
2 job descriptions, 2 responsibility lists. How am I transitioning those? How is that going to go? What triggers, what milestones say, hey, it's time to make that hire. It's time to start to step totally out and get that 4th crew in place, and you're not picking up a tool anymore.
Every transition, every level up that you do, there are things that on your day-to-day that are going to drop off. And there are things that are going to be added to you as a new responsibility. Correct. And you need to know what those are and know how am I going to execute those things.
Yep. So in that, if I've got the processes and procedures in place, how I know that they're in place is when I'm making steps forward, things are still working just as good as before. So the reputation. I have processes in place from how I'm going to communicate with the client to ensure that no matter what happens on the job site, because I'm not there, that the client knows, A, they're safe, secure, I've got their back, and B, I'm in charge of it and I'm going to handle it and I know what's going on, right? That's the reputation that the client cares about. When I'm on site, I don't think about that, because I am good at what I do. I can deliver that product. Customer service is natural and it happens in the background because I see the client every day. Yeah. How am I communicating? I'm going to send X amount of emails a week. I'm going to do this. This is when we invoice. All of the processes of how that communication and customer service work have to be documented, because when I step off the job site, who's talking to the client? Because there's someone there that the client wants to talk to, but I'm the one in charge, but I'm not there today. Who are they calling, right? That sort of processes of the next step have to be built out, as well as in this step currently, this is how I operate. So we take that's going to protect your reputation. The second is, how do I protect my money? How do I plan for this? Because with these levels, it's a wave going up and down of how profitable I am.
Right.
When I'm hiring, when I'm moving, when I'm expanding to a new city, whatever I'm doing costs a lot.
When I decrease from bringing home 75% to 30%.
Yes. Yeah. Every single one of those steps costs me money. And so knowing where I'm going with those steps and where it's going to get really tight, I can plan accordingly now to say, hey, I am making $150,000 a year right now. I can go buy a $100,000 truck if I wanted to, but in a year from now, when I make my first hire, I'm not going to be able to afford a hire in that new truck.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding where is my money going to where I'm not getting top heavy with overhead. And if for some reason clients fall off, a recession hits, a pandemic hits, something happens to where your clientele goes back, financially, what's my game plan?
Yeah.
Who gets cut? How do I save money? What do I do with that? So I can live super below my means in the high spots to where when it gets low, I can power through that and get over that hump.
Well, and some other aspects of that as well is, how do I know if I'm charging enough money?
Yeah.
How do I know if the profit that I'm making on the job is enough to keep my company running and move to the next level of growth that I want?
Well, we always say 30%, and we throw that around, and people have issues with that because if I'm doing a $2,000 job, I have to make 100%.
Right.
If I'm doing a $40,000 job, I got to be at 30%.
Yeah.
If I'm doing an $800,000 job, I'm not going to win the bid at 30%. Right. And so figuring out and understanding how I price, not just this is our flat rate, we are at 30% all the time.
Yeah.
What is best for your company, your area? I'm a high end in a high end market, so I can get a little more profit, but I need to turn up my customer service. Right.
Well, you need to be able to calculate the numbers. Let's say I want to do 30% all the time, and that's the way I bid because it makes my estimating easier, right? That's fine. Then know a level of jobs that if it's below $20,000, I can't take it.
Yep.
If it's above $190,000 or $200,000, if it's above that, I can't take it. And so there's my sweet spot, right?
What Jared and I are talking about right now is the first thing we do with your company is define what your product is. We need to look at your company, stage 1, stage 2. I don't care what stage you're coming in at. What do you sell to who? What do we say no to? What do we say yes to? Who's our prime demographic that we're targeting with our services? And so once we know that starts defining how we charge, what we charge, how we price things, how we do estimates, and the processes of delivering that, right? Like I was saying, if I am a high-end area and a high-end product and I can charge 40 to 50% profit and deliver to my clients that level of service, I'm going to have a different service and customer service process than the company doing I'm working with investments or I'm flipping homes for investors and it's a different level of customer service.
It's quick in and out.
Lower customer service. My process is more delivering the product with efficiency as well as communication once a week that I update my investor on. Yeah. I can do a lower percentage because I can churn out 7 of those at a time,
right,
where the high-end one I'm doing 2 at a time. Right. And so understanding what product you have, how do we package that, what's the processes around that, and that's what we're going to roll out to the guys that are below us, the crew leads, our new hires, our office manager eventually, the project managers. They're all being trained on the product that we're building.
Right.
So,
well, I think the finances piece of it, there's a ton of things that affect that.
Yep.
We've talked about robbing Peter to pay Paul. We've talked about charging enough money. We've talked about change orders. We've talked things like when do clients pay you? Yep. How should they pay you? All of those things affect your cash flow and your ability to stay in business. So that's a big spot, especially in this first wall, that there's a big transition of. You are now paying for your paycheck as a manager, but you're not a producer anymore. Yep. And so you need to know your numbers. You need to know where your money's going. Am I charging enough? And how do I get it fast enough to continue moving forward?
Yep. With the small list of stuff you just listed that can go wrong.
Yeah.
That is the beauty of our processes and procedures that we give you as a skeleton and help you mold into your processes and procedures. Because every single thing that you just said that can go wrong on a job site, with the client, with suppliers, with everything that happens that can go wrong, lose you money or lose you reputation, is why there's a process. The process is built to exclude those issues, right? So if this happens, then this happens and we're safe.
Right.
If I need to do a change order, this is the process of doing that to ensure that the homeowner is willing to pay me right away on this change order that's coming in, and it's not something I bring up in 4 months that they didn't agree to pay for, and now we're going to court over it. All sorts of things that we have built a process solely to stop all of those issues that could happen.
Yeah.
So when we see guys coming in building their own processes, that's great. You've identified 4 areas that you've got burned. We've got 16 areas that we got burned in that spot. So let's make sure that your process is fully cooked to where it can be implemented and avoid all of these things. We had one guy that came in that had to have his subs on. They just had to have them all W-2. They wanted all of my labor employees. And we said, that works where you're at right now. I get that. I understand that. Where your company's at, that makes sense. Do you want to grow? Because this is the reasons that we have to shift them to 1099 from W-2 because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And we laid out the reasoning, how you manage it, how they can make more money as 1099, how they're in control of the product that they are delivering, and we can replace them if it's not good, and a bunch of other things. But all that to say, we look at the long-term goal of the company and then build a process around how do we get there. Not out of what works today. Not out of today we do it this way, so that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Great. If you want to stay where you're at today, then that's what you should do. But if you're trying to grow to the next level, we got to plan for the next level, not for how things run today.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that we just talked about financial. We just talked about reputation. And the third one is attrition or getting burnout, right? And in this first wall, the place where that happens, money or reputation, you've just recently or you are trying to move to full project management and no longer putting your tool belt on. If reputation starts falling and your client's like, and they start calling you and complaining you or whatever, or you've overspent, you've mismanaged the money, there's not enough money coming in, what happens? You go backwards. You put your tool belt on and you go save the day.
Yeah.
Right? You go spend your time to save the money and to save the reputation.
You were the process. You stepped out hoping to have a process in place. It didn't work. I'm now back into being the process.
And I've seen guys ping in that circle back and forth over and over and over and over, and they all have said to me, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to get out of this. This isn't worth it.
Yeah.
I just can't go any further. And that's the space where we have to stop and say, okay, if we implement these few processes, would you be willing to implement those and stick to them?
Yeah.
And me as their coach, I am able to come in and say, if they're willing to do that, then my next question is, would you allow me to hold you accountable to that?
Yeah.
Right. And I can then say, no, don't put your tool belt on. I know it's going to cost you some money, but spend the $250 and pay somebody to do that.
Well, and guys will say, well, I just don't have those skills. Great. Anyone can do this if they have the ability to be self-aware, because it's not rocket science. I mean, it isn't. It's there are certain aspects that you have to focus on that guys don't realize or see or focus on. But in our system, listen, I just need you to be self-disciplined. Can you do these 4 things? Yes. If they show up next month and haven't done any of them, they're not going to get anywhere. And that's what we're talking about in terms of you don't have to be really good at marketing. Here are the 5 things you got to do as baseline. Once we get to this level, here's how we implement marketing.
Yeah.
This is how we do that. This is how we're going to do the sales process. This is how I'm not good with this. Great. This is how we're going to get a hire in that area first for you to support what you're not good at so you can do the things you're good at. Right. And so planning that out and looking at it, it all takes self-control. I think that is the reason that our general contracting company has expanded out of state and grown to where it's at, because the one thing that I had a lot of things missing, but the one thing I had was I'm not good at that. So I either need to hire someone, bring support in, or Jared, keep me accountable. I'm terrible at this. I am not good at managing my time. So check on my calendar every Monday. Let's look at my calendar, make sure I've time blocked, I've set stuff aside. to where I get self-discipline naturally because I have accountability and I'm vulnerable in terms of I want you to be able to call
by
me
nature
out.
of that, you may not be good at it, but you get better.
Yeah.
And you may never be great.
Yeah.
But you get better at it.
It becomes a rhythm. It becomes just that's how I do things.
Yeah. But getting the beauty of moving through this first wall and into the second level where you are full-time project managing, you are increasing the bandwidth of work that you can take on. You're reducing the incoming money because you're paying other people to do the labor.
Yep.
But you're able to take on more work than you could have possibly taken on when you were on site managing the jobs. There is a cap to that. And so moving into this next level, one allows you to get to that space where you can take on more work and you can, because you've got your processes and you can dial that in and really get those humming like a top. And then that sets you up to move to the next space where you can start bringing in new people and hiring people because you've created the process and now you're going to start looking towards duplicating, which is where we'll get to next.
Yep. So next podcast, we're going to talk about now I'm in as a project manager. I'm running jobs. I'm not swinging a hammer. Might be once a month that I got to pull out a screwdriver to fix a door handle, but I'm not in charge of that job site, right? I'm running jobs. I got 3, 4, 5 going at a time, depending on the size of the company and what industry you're in. You might have 15 going on. You might have 2 going on. Either way, I am systemizing to where I'm not swinging the hammer. I'm level 2 as the project manager, and we're going to hire our first project manager to do what I'm doing, and then we're going to start duplicating the project managers where I'm moving up the chain to a general manager or
install
head of construction.
wall number 2.
Yes. So that's the second wall that we're going to talk about of now that I'm in that project manager role, how do I bring on other PMs around me and underneath me to where we can start doubling the size of our company again and continue the growth now that we're stabilized with me managing projects.
Yeah.
If what we just talked about hits home for you, if what we are saying is like, I'm in that loop. I've been in that
familiar.
loop.
Yeah.
We will love to talk with you and share some of our stuff with you. Email us, go to our website, proservalliance.com. Shoot us an email from there. You can contact us on our website. But we love to interact with you guys and share some of this stuff. We do a 1 day to win where we give you a ton of this information. It's kind of a tester if you want to come and see what we do and want to be a part of it.
And you get a ton of really good information.
And then we've also rolled out 2 different partnership levels. One is where we give you the paperwork and the program, and it's more a do-it-yourself. The second level of ProServe Alliance is
we come alongside you. And
we are your board of directors. We're here to help you make decisions, bounce things off of, have a hey, what if I did it this way? Well, that doesn't work because of this. And it's more of a every other week or every week conversation that we're having with them to where we are supporting them and giving feedback and really getting our hands dirty in their company. So we have different levels to allow someone who wants to do it themselves and doesn't want to coach but needs some guidance. We got you covered.
Yeah.
So reach out to us. Let us know. We'd love to give you that 280-point growth path and walk through that with you if you join our program and kind of say, okay, you're here. Here are the things we need to do to get to the next level.
That's right.
So, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Later.
Thanks.